Morning. This is today's take. The last few, I have been going against everything that the administration as such is doing here. Today, a little bit different. I support the people in Gaza and the West Bank, definitely. But there are many other places that this kind of cruelty and genocidal actions are taking place. And we tend to write them off. Places like the Sudan, which we have had going on for decades. If you were around in the 80s and 90s, we had people coming here that were called the Lost Boys. These were young men in Africa who were forced into being in paramilitary organizations, forced to kill their own family members. And we see the places all throughout Africa where these genocides are going, and these genocides are for governmental power, extremist actions, for the resources that these lands hold. And there comes a point in time when you have to ask yourself, what is a person's life worth? Well, apparently in places like the Congo, it's worth the cobalt that runs a lot of electronics. Or it's because you're not extremist Muslim. Now, I have no problem with those that follow Islam. I have friends that throughout my life that have been in the Islamic community. And we condemn everybody in Islam because of the actions of the extremists. The same reason that we tend to criminalize all Jews because of the extremist Zionists of the Jewish people. Here's the problem with that. They're not all extremists. And we have to quit treating them as such. A Muslim says Allah Akbar, and everybody here in Western society goes absolutely insane. But it's an Arabic term. It just means God is great. If you're in an Arabic-speaking country, whether you're Christian or Jew or Muslim, you're going to use that term. Why? Because it's the language. Islam doesn't have the sole rights to using the term Allah Akbar. Extremists have made it a cry of violence. A lot of people that are dying in these genocides throughout Africa and attacks in the Middle East, like happened in Pakistan last year and happened in Israel. And despite what the evangelicals say, there are a lot of Jews in Israel that absolutely despise Christians. They're burning monasteries, tearing down holy sites, spitting on them, beating them up. A lot of these genocides are Christian-based. And they're being carried out by the extremists of a faith. And let's be honest, the Christian church has done a lot of the same. They were the Catholics and the non-Catholics that came here, committed genocide against the indigenous throughout all of the Americas. They used weaponized Christianity to prove the right to slavery for a few hundred years and then institute Jim Crow laws. So we have blood on our hands. And for those that uphold the Crusaders like I used to, they committed crimes against their own. They committed crimes against Jews, Muslims, and the Byzantine Christians. So they had blood on their hands. The problem is that we look at the extremes, whether it's religion or politics. The majority of people in this country, in the U.S., are actually moderates. They're centrists. They're liberal on some things, they're conservative on others. But most people look at American politics and they see the right extreme, like the Christian nationalists and men like Trump and J.D. Vance. And then on the left, they see the extreme of radical leftists. Radicalization in our world is more prevalent than it has been in centuries. A lot of that is due to social media, because before social media, you got your news either at 6 or 11 o'clock on the television or the daily newspaper or a radio report. But now it's in our faces 24/7, and it's not that the violence is stupendously increased. It's just that we're seeing more of it. The problem is the people with the loudest voices are the extremes. Muslims, Jews, Christians, non-religious, Hindus, Buddhists, the majority of these people just want to live in peace. It's the extremists that we hear about, whether it's the extremist Hindus attacking Muslims and Christians in India, or the extremist Muslims in Africa committing genocide in places like Sudan, the Congo, Nigeria, Kenya, Eritrea, northern Ethiopia. And what really, really bothers me, especially here in the West, and all of those years of the supposed supremacy of the United States, here we have an American culture was an amalgamation of multiple cultures, because we don't have one single American culture. It's a combination of everybody that's come here. So we tend in the West to look at the East and Africa and Central South America in that view. And these other cultures, they have some very beautiful things. And I've always been one to say that if we could go to the food and the music and the art and the dance and the literature, that would go a lot farther than the barrel of a gun in understanding each other. So for you Christians that think that everybody that is not Christian, then you want to weaponize and force that issue, go back and read the red parts of the Bible. And remember Matthew 5:44 during the Sermon on the Mount. He says, "You have heard to hate your enemy, but I tell you to love your enemy. Pray for those that persecute you." Does not mean you cannot defend yourself. What it does mean is God created everybody. It's not ours to judge who goes to heaven or hell. We're supposed to preach Christ. If we can't do that, you can't be a Christian. So remember the victims of the genocides and extremist actions against innocent people. That's today's take. And for all of the victims on all sides of conflict around the world, you're in my prayers and my thoughts.